Do you also believe that if you have money, then respect belongs to you too? That the poor are only meant to receive help, never give it? That a hungry, homeless soul could never offer anything of value to the rich, only take from them? If yes, then maybe, just maybe, you're mistaken. Because sometimes the hands that look the emptiest are the ones that give the most powerful blessings. And often, it's those with the least who give the most. Under the blistering sun of downtown Lagos, the smell of petrol mixed with burning suya in the air. The world didn't pause for the forgotten, and Zainab had become an expert at being invisible. She was 8 months pregnant, barefoot, and hungry, her wrapper worn thin, her blouse torn at the shoulder. People passed her by like she was part of the pavement. They didn't see the quiet pain in her eyes, or the swollen feet that bled a little more with every step. They just saw a nuisance, a burden. Once, she had dreams. She'd wanted to become a nurse. But then her uncle had taken her in after her parents died, and soon after, sold her out like she was nothing but livestock. The baby she carried wasn't born out of love. It was born out of betrayal. But Zainab never blamed the child, only herself, for believing she mattered. That afternoon, Zainab stood in front of Eco's Silver Towers, the tallest building in Lagos, home to Don Alhaji Malik, the billionaire everyone feared, envied, and secretly wanted to destroy. His name echoed in the streets like a myth. They said he had no heart, that he owned oil fields in 4 countries, that even ministers bowed to him. Zainab didn't come for money. She came to clean windshields. With a piece of cloth soaked in a plastic cup, she moved between the tinted jeeps parked at a roundabout, whispering, "Please, just 100 Nigerian nairas, even 50 Nigerian nairas." Her voice cracked with each attempt. Then, she reached his car, a black Rolls-Royce, the symbol of pride. She wiped gently, but before her cloth touched the glass, a loud, furious voice thundered from behind. "Get away from my car, you filthy rat." The back door flung open. A polished brown loafer stepped out first. Then a man, tall and broad, in a white kaftan lined with gold embroidery. His sunglasses reflected the sun like glass daggers. He was followed by 2 security guards, dressed in black suits, carrying the weight of violence behind their silence. The billionaire himself, Don Malik. Zainab stepped back, bowing her head. "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean." Before she could finish, he lifted his foot and with a disgusting thud, kicked her right in the stomach. She collapsed. Gasps rang from across the plaza. A few staff from the building stopped. One woman screamed, "She's pregnant." But Don Malik didn't flinch. He wiped his palm with a silk handkerchief and said, "Next time, she'll think twice before touching what's not his." Zainab lay there, curled on the tiles. Blood formed a small trail beneath her dress. But it wasn't the pain that shocked everyone. It was what she whispered next. Her voice shook like cracked porcelain. "You kicked your own blood, Malik." Silence. He froze. His guards looked at each other. She looked up, her lip bleeding, her eyes full of tears and rage. "I am Zainab, daughter of Miriam, the girl you abandoned in Kano 22 years ago." The air changed. Even the wind stilled. He stared at her, his jaw clenched. "You lie." But her next sentence struck like a thunderclap. "Your mother's necklace, the one with the tiny ruby, she gave it to my mother the night you disappeared. It's the only proof I kept hidden all these years." He staggered back. His mother had been buried with that necklace, or so he thought. His breath caught in his throat. For the first time in decades, Don Malik trembled. He whispered, "Miriam, I was told she died with a child." Zainab wiped her tears with the edge of her wrapper. "She didn't. She lived long enough to name me after your grandmother, long enough to tell me to never come looking for you. But life brought me here anyway." He looked down at her. The crowd around them, once a blur, was now silent, watching. He knelt, not because someone told him to, but because guilt finally weighed more than power. His lips parted, but no word came out. And in that single moment, the girl he kicked became the only person in the world who could forgive him. But what happens when power meets shame? When the blood you tried to bury rises in front of you, bruised, bleeding, but unbroken. And what Zainab said next was something even he, the cold-hearted billionaire, would never forget. Because she didn't curse him. She simply asked, if a tree forgets its root, does a root forget the tree? Let me ask you, what will he do now? Can a man like Don Malik undo decades of silence with one act of regret? And what does Zainab truly want? Justice, or something deeper? The cameras were still flashing when Zainab turned away. Her wrapper was smeared with red dust and something sticky she couldn't name. Her belly, swollen with life, pressed against her ribs as if the child had flinched too, as if the unborn had felt its mother's dignity crushed under the billionaire's expensive boot. The guard shouted. Someone tried to pull her away, but she didn't run. She walked, slow, head up, past the marble pillars, past a fountain made of imported Italian stone, past the same women who had whispered, "Is that her? That thing he slept with?" And as she stepped into the street barefoot, people started to follow, not because she was weak, but because something about her stillness made them uneasy. Something about the way she held her belly, like it was her only treasure in the world, made even the loudest voice fall quiet. Across the street, a boy no older than 10 tugged at her hand. He wore a green plastic sandal on one foot. The other was bare, and his eyes, they were not afraid of her silence. They were curious. "Sister, are you hungry?" Zainab blinked. He held out a piece of dry, broken bread, probably from the bottom of the bin, probably all he had. She couldn't speak. She sat down beside him on the edge of the gutter and took the bread with both hands, as if it was gold. The boy nodded, satisfied, and that was the first time Zainab cried since the billionaire had left her on that rainy night. Not when her mother's house was burned, not when she found out she was pregnant, not even when her name became a scandal. But now, over a child's offering of stale bread, she wept. "Who are you?" she asked softly. The boy grinned. "Ola. My mama says I have a nose like my papa, but I don't remember him." Zainab looked up at the sky, as if to hide her tears. The Abuja skyline shimmered in the heat, and somewhere a siren wailed like a warning. She whispered, "Thank you, Ola." He wiped his nose with his wrist and asked, "What's your baby's name?" She smiled, the first real one in days. "I haven't decided yet." Ola tilted his head. "Can I help?" That night, Zainab slept behind the closed stalls of the night market. Her arms wrapped around her belly, her mind spinning like storm water. The shame was not from being kicked, not from the tabloids, not even from being discarded like waste. It was from remembering the man she once knew, the one who used to feed stray dogs in Lagos alleys, the one who promised her she'd never be hungry again, the man who now denied her. But power doesn't always destroy love. Sometimes it forgets it. 3 days passed. Zainab and Ola became inseparable. They sold oranges in traffic and shared Accra from the same paper. The boy spoke like an old soul, asking why rich people had so many chairs and still stood lonely at windows. She never answered. But every night, after he fell asleep curled beside her, Zainab whispered prayers into the dark. Not for money, not even for justice. She prayed to remain human, that her soul wouldn't grow bitter, that her baby would be born with kindness in its bones, that her name would not be forgotten, even if it was never praised. On the 5th day, she collapsed. In the middle of the market, her knees buckled, her hands shook, and the world tilted sideways. Blood, so much blood, Ola screamed. People gathered. No one moved, until a tall man in white ran through the crowd, lifted her in his arms, and shouted, "Clear the road! She's going into labor." Zainab drifted in and out of darkness. Her head lolled. Her hand searched for Ola, but found only air. The pain was unbearable, not because of contractions, but because this wasn't how she dreamed it would be. Not in the back of a delivery truck, not with strangers murmuring prayers she couldn't hear. She wanted her child to be born in peace, in dignity. But life had other plans. The baby girl was born at dawn. Her cries sliced through the morning air like thunder over a quiet village. Zainab couldn't lift her head, but she whispered, "Give her to me." They placed the baby on her chest. A perfect little face. A nose like her own. Fingers curled tight, like she was already learning to hold on. Ola peered into the door, eyes wide. "Is that her?" he asked, as if she were royalty. Zainab smiled through tears. Yes, her name is Amina. Word spread. A video someone took at the billionaire's mansion of Zainab being kicked, then standing tall, went viral. They called her the pregnant girl who didn't flinch. Some mocked, some praised. But in a strange twist of fate, one of the people who saw the video was a man with salt in his beard and scars on his soul. Zainab's father. He had believed she died long ago in a house fire. His wife, Zainab's mother, had been paid to disappear, and the child was said to be lost in the flames. But the video, the eyes, the birthmark above her lip, he knew. And suddenly, the billionaire's cruelty became a national scandal, because the girl he kicked was his brother's daughter, the one they buried in lies, the one whose mother was discarded for being too ordinary. Zainab was found, not by tabloids, but by legacy. Her uncle, the same billionaire who denied her, was forced to kneel before a crowd and apologize, not by law, by shame. He looked at her, the girl he abandoned, but she looked past him at the crowd and said, "I do not forgive him because he's sorry. I forgive him so my daughter never learns to hate." That day, she didn't just receive inheritance papers. She received keys to schools she would open for girls like her, to a clinic she would build in memory of the market woman who helped deliver Amina, and to a house, not for herself, but for Ola and every boy like him who believed stale bread was enough. People asked how it felt to go from barefoot to billionaire. Zainab always answered the same. Money did not give me dignity. Pain did not take it from me. It was never for sale. And in the crowd, a journalist once whispered, who really saved who? Was it the billionaire's apology, or the boy who gave her bread? Have you ever judged someone's work by their clothes, without knowing where they survived? What if the child you mock today is the same one you'll kneel before tomorrow? Zainab sat alone on the balcony of her new home. No, her new palace. The marble beneath her feet was colder than the cement floor of the mosque she'd once slept in, and yet somehow it felt less real. The world had changed overnight. Cameras chased her now. Headlines screamed, from street girl to billionaire heiress. Pregnant pauper found to be daughter of late Al-Haji Karim. Homeless girl wins inheritance war. But beneath the glamour, something in her soul had stayed behind, somewhere back on that dusty roadside where she'd once begged for water. She hadn't cried since that day the billionaire Khalid had thrown her to the ground in front of security men. The humiliation still burned like hot oil on her skin. But what had silenced him wasn't her insult. It was a name she had whispered through her tears. I am Zainab Karim, and I carry your brother's child. The silence that followed shattered every lie. The storm hadn't fully arrived then, but now it loomed, because not everyone celebrated her return. Zainab had been formally declared the only surviving heir of the Karim Empire. A DNA test confirmed it. She was a hidden child of the late tycoon, the result of a quiet affair with a village woman, hushed by family shame and class pride. And suddenly, the empire had a queen no one had prepared for. Board members whispered. Staff stared. Her uncle, the same man who had kicked her, hadn't said a word since. He hadn't shown up to the press conference. He hadn't sent a single apology. But Zainab didn't care for apologies. Her back had been bent by hunger, not words. What mattered now was the life inside her, the child who hadn't asked for any of this. That afternoon, as she walked the halls of the mansion, she paused in a room filled with photos. Black and white portraits of men in Igbadas, women in Geli, smiling children on horsebacks, not one picture of her mother, not one picture of her. She swallowed hard and turned, only to find a face she hadn't seen in 10 years. Aisha, her childhood best friend, her sister in poverty, the girl who used to steal mangoes with her and share half of a sachet of water in the sun. But this Aisha was different. She wore heels. Her hair was straightened. She had a designer bag slung on one shoulder and confidence that came with forgetting the past. Zainab, she said, tilting her head. Or should I say, Madam Karim? Zainab smiled, but her eyes did not. I didn't know you worked here, she said gently. I don't. I came with my boss. Your boss? Just then, Khalid entered the hallway. The same man who had once kicked her. But this time, he didn't look proud. He looked broken. "I didn't know," he said quietly. "I swear I didn't know who you were, what you carried. If I had known..." Zainab cut him off. "You would have treated me like a human being?" He looked away. Aisha stepped forward, nervous. "He came because he found something. A letter from your father. He said it explains everything." Zainab stiffened. Her hand unconsciously moved to her swollen belly. Khalid slowly took out a worn, yellowed envelope. "I didn't want to believe it," he said. "But you deserve the truth. The letter was dated 12 years ago. My dear daughter, Zainab, though you may never read this, I write it because I cannot bear the shame of silence. Your mother was my light in a time when my world was dark. But I was a coward. I let my family bury the truth. I let power erase my love. You are my blood. You are more than enough. If this letter reaches you one day, I pray you find the strength to claim what was stolen. Not just wealth, but your name, your dignity, your story. Forgive me, my child, even if the world doesn't." Baba. Zainab wept, not for the mansion, not for the headlines, but because she had spent years thinking she was unwanted, when all along she had been hidden. That night, she stood in front of a packed hall. The Kareem Foundation was launching a new scholarship for street children in her name. Zainab stepped up to the mic in a simple African gown. No diamonds, no designer dress, just dignity. "My name is Zainab," she began. "Once, I was a girl you all ignored. The one who washed your plates and cleaned your shoes. You threw leftovers at me. You stepped over me. You laughed at my dream of becoming a nurse. The room was still, but I survived. And today, I am not here to take revenge. I am here to build something better. Because no child should be punished for their mother's poverty. No girl should be told she's worthless. And no billionaire should ever forget where they came from." People stood. Some cried. Even Khalid wiped a tear. And then came the most unexpected moment of all. From the back of the room, a quiet voice said, "Zainab?" She turned. It was her mother, gray-haired, thin, trembling, but alive. Aisha had found her, living in a small village, still thinking her daughter was lost to the city. Zainab ran. The crowd parted, and mother and daughter collapsed into each other's arms. That night, as fireworks lit up the Lagos sky, Zainab sat by her window holding a frame. A photo of her mother as a young woman, smiling in a wrapper with a baby on her lap. She was no longer the girl who was kicked. She was a woman who rose. The billionaire who would not forget. And yet, questions still haunted her. Was Khalid truly sorry, or just protecting his reputation? Would the board ever fully accept a woman like her at the helm? And what would she do if her child asked one day, "Mama, why did no one want you?" Rain tapped lightly against the mansion windows as Zainab stood before the council of shareholders. Former doubters, old money men in stiff abbatas, women with eyes sharp like knives, all waiting to see if the homeless girl would fumble. But Zainab, wrapped in a flowing emerald boubou stitched with ancestral symbols, did not flinch. She stood tall, her belly now heavy with life, and her voice steady like the call of justice. Once, she was kicked to the roadside, her worth mocked. But today, she owned the very company that threw her out. "Let the record show," she said, her voice slicing the silence, "that legacy is not built by wealth, but by truth, sacrifice, and love." They clapped, slowly at first, then like thunder. But none of that compared to the moment after the meeting, when she walked down the corridor and found the boy, Yusufu. He stood in the same oversized slippers, holding a tray of puff-puffs for the kitchen. But when he saw her, his mouth dropped. "I kept one for you," he whispered, pulling a warm puff-puff from under his wrapper. Zainab took it like gold. Tears spilled quietly. He had been her first kindness, the only soul who saw her as more than a stray. "Why did you help me that night?" she asked. Yusufa looked down. "Because when I was sick and hungry, you gave me your blanket, even though you were colder than me." That moment cracked her heart wide open. Not the billions, not the applause. This was the one thing she never had. Not in luxury, not in wealth, not in boardrooms. True, unconditional love. 3 months later, the villa in 8 buzzed with quiet joy. Midwives floated in and out like whispered prayers. Aunties tied scarves tighter. The drums outside began to thump, welcoming life. Zainab gripped the sheets, sweat beading her forehead. Her eyes locked with Miriam's, the housemaid who now refused to leave her side. "It's a girl," the midwife whispered after the final cry broke through the heavens. "A strong one." Zainab laughed through her tears. She held the baby to her chest and whispered, "I name you Aminata, the one who trusts even when abandoned." Outside, 100 faces waited, but one man waited differently. Al-Haji Mansour, the billionaire who kicked her, the father she never had. He stood beside the gate, head bowed, a rose in hand. When she approached, baby in arm, the security guard stepped forward, but she raised her hand. Let him come. He knelt before her, not for the crowd, not for the cameras, but for the ache in his soul. "For 20 years, he whispered, I thought silence would protect my name, but it only ruined your life." Zainab looked at him, not as a daughter, not as a victim, but as a woman who had survived what many wouldn't. "I forgive you, but she pointed to the baby. She won't call you grandfather because of money. She'll call you that when you earn it." That day he wept, the kind of weeping that breaks and heals at once. 6 months later, Zainab founded the House of Return, a sanctuary for homeless pregnant women across West Africa. Each woman got a bed, a doula, legal help, a safe place to be seen and heard. She didn't want her story to be rare. She wanted it to be multiplied. Reporters swarmed her. Documentaries were filmed. But she never gave her full story, except to one person, Yusufu, sitting under the mango tree at sunset. She told him everything, every moment of fear, every cruel face, every miracle. He said nothing. Then he pulled out a small black stone from his pocket. "This was the stone you sat on that day outside the restaurant. I kept it. I knew something big would come from that pain." Zainab smiled. "That's why I chose you to manage House of Return." "Me?" he gasped. "Yes, you. Who better to lead than the one who saw me before the world did?" He looked at her belly again, now carrying her second child. Not from violence, not from shame, but from love. Later that night, Zainab lit a small candle and placed it by her late mother's photo. "You were right, Mama," she whispered. "Dignity isn't given. It's chosen, even when the world tries to rip it from you." The house fell silent. Stars hung low. And then a knock. Zainab opened the door to find a woman, shivering, barefoot, with a belly like hers once was. No ID, no husband, just a name, Janaza. Zainab smiled gently. "Come in." She wrapped her in a shawl and led her to the guest room, because once someone had done that for her. And so the cycle began again, not of poverty, but of healing, not of secrets, but of truth, not of survival, but of restoration. Because the girl they kicked, the girl they called mad, the girl who once had nothing, now had everything that mattered. Not just wealth, but peace. Not just status, but purpose. Not just blood family, but a chosen one. What if kindness is a true key to royalty? What if the ones you overlook today are the ones sent to deliver you tomorrow? And what if next time the pregnant girl at the gate isn't asking for help, but offering it?